You know what I don't get? Why does all BO smell exactly the same? I mean, obviously there's different levels of BO. Not all of it's super pungent, but whenever, even if you get a tiny whiff, it smells exactly like anybody else's BO. And it's weird too, because it's not just like, I mean, I work at FedEx. We get it's a workout. You get sweaty, but you don't really get whiffs from everybody. Like, it's not just sweat; it's like odor. You know what I mean? Just sweating like pit sweat doesn't necessarily mean BO. But when someone has BO, it's like that weird, gross, acidic, like ugh, like stench. And it's not always just because they're exercising or anything. I mean, I know people. I'm not going to name names, but close to me, not in friendship, but in distance, that just wake up in the morning, they go get a shower, and then they come out and they reek of BO. And I think, how does that happen? It's not a dirty issue, it's just your smell. It's your body odor. It's very confusing. And it's weird that no matter who it is, no matter what their background is, their race, their religion, their gender, all BO smells exactly the same. And I don't get that. There's got to be a reason, I guess. Because like I said, I don't think it's like an exercise thing. Maybe it's just like a genetic, what's the word? Like when a snake has two heads or something? Mutation, I guess. Some sort of, like the same reason people have brown eyes. They both, everyone's brown eyes are the same color. So I guess everyone's BO smells exactly the same. You know what else I don't get? How electricity works. Now you may be asking yourself, Harrison, weren't you going to be an electrical engineer? And to that I say, yes. Not a very good one, though. Clearly. Which is why I, of course, changed my major from electrical engineering to English. Not technically yet, but I'm on the right track to doing it, becoming an English teacher. Of course, once you get your English certification, at least in Pennsylvania, I don't know how it works anywhere else, but then I can take my test to get social studies and math and graphics and all that crap certification. So maybe I won't be an English teacher, but I'll be a teacher nonetheless. Regardless, I don't know. I certainly won't be an electrician. Certainly will not be teaching any students about electricity anytime soon, because it doesn't make any sense to me. Like, does it come from lightning? You know? Or is it just the same as lightning? Where, And how's a motor work? Like, even a very small motor, like in a remote control car. Like, it's just, you can hook it up to a battery. Like, let's just say you just have a small little motor and a battery and then two wires. And you put those wires on the positive and negative side of a battery. And then it just spins? How does that work? What makes it spin? And again, there's certainly a reason. I'm sure it's not too difficult to understand. It's just like, oh, well, there's a magnet in there, and the electronic field is what makes it spin around, and we harnessed the power to be able to flip it. I'm like, but I don't care. But it's still confusing. You know what else I don't get? This is the big one. This is the clincher. I've got plenty more to go. Let's say you're driving. All right, no, sorry. Let's say you're walking outside and there's a fly flying around your head, and you're walking at 5 miles an hour. You would say that fly is flying at 5 miles an hour as well, if it's following you. Of course, you can get into the physics and say, well, in relation to the road, it's going 5 miles an hour, but in relation to you, it's going 0 miles an hour, because it's moving at your same pace, blah, 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 blah. Let's say you're in a car now, driving 60 miles an hour. Now, of course, you're sitting in the seat. You're not moving, but technically you are also going 60 miles an hour in relation to the road. Like, if the car came to a complete stop in 0 seconds, you would still go 60 miles an hour, and you would shoot through the windshield and then hit a brick wall at 60 miles an hour. Now let's say, so you're driving 60 miles an hour. Now let's say a fly is in your car, flying around just flying at the normal fly's pace, but he's in your car. Now, does that mean that that fly is flying 60 miles an hour? I can't wrap my head around this question. Like, I understand the relationship between the road and the car and the car and the fly and the road and the fly. I can understand that, where you're like, well, in the car, technically, he's only going 5 miles an hour or whatever the heck fast he's going in relation to the car. But also, so let's say you open the window and he's, all right, let's say it's a convertible and he's still flying at your pace. Now, that doesn't change any of the physics, I don't think, other than there'd be wind. But let's disregard wind. Does that ruin the whole problem if you disregard wind? Let's say it's a convertible and the fly is a little over top of where the car technically ends. Like he's on the top of the windowsill plus like a foot. He's in the air. He's not in the car. But if he was able to fly at your same pace as the car, he would be flying 60 miles an hour. But all of a sudden when he gets in within the car, now it's only 5 miles an hour. Now that may be very confusing, which is why I put it on the list, because this is the list of crap I do not understand. I cannot wrap my head around that question. And I'm sure there's something, it may come down to, well, of course, if you had the wind resistance, he wouldn't be able to fly that fast, so that's why it doesn't make sense. But I don't know. I guess the same thing would work if you were on a treadmill in a big car. If you had a big enough car for a treadmill, and you were running on the treadmill, would you be running technically 60 miles an hour? I guess. But I think what makes it confusing is the treadmill will be touching the car, but the fly is not touching the car. Like, I get if the fly is sitting on the seat. Oh, he's going 60 miles an hour technically. He doesn't feel it. But now he's flying around on his own devices. He's not even touching the car. He's just technically in it. The same way I said with the convertible, like, oh, it's only when he gets within the barrier of the car that it doesn't make sense. I don't know. I don't even know how to keep keep that sentence going, because it doesn't make sense. You know what else doesn't make sense? How come two negatives make a positive in math? Two positives don't make a negative, but two negatives make a positive? Is there any real explanation for that, or is it just something that Newton made up when he invented calculus? That's a quick one. There's not much more I can elaborate with that. That's the word I was thinking about earlier, elaborate. What happened to worms? That's another good question. I think it used to rain a lot more. There definitely used to be a lot more worms on the sidewalk after it rained. It rains a lot here, but I don't see any worms. Are they all disappearing? Oh, here's a good one. How do sewing machines work? By the way, I wrote all these down on a note card. Of course, from episode 2 or 3 or whatever the hell. Heck. I like making lists, so this is very helpful. How do sewing machines work? That's another thing that really doesn't make any sense to me. How do sewing machines work? So the needle is a different kind of needle than if you hand stitch something. I know how to hand stitch something. You just loop it through. Sometimes you can tie a knot while you're looping it, so make it effective, whatever. I just make stuff up while I sew. Regardless, is there a different needle on a sewing machine than a normal sewing person? So you're telling me like it's the fabric is sitting flat on the table, basically, the flat part of the sewing machine, and the needle goes in. Or like when you're hand stitching something, the needle goes in the entire way, and then you flip it upside down and pull it back through the other way, and it's just like a big bunch of S's, a big loop going back and forth, up and down and up and down. But the sewing machine cannot put the needle the whole way through and then flip it over and back up through again. It just goes down and up and down and up and down. I mean, is there a hook maybe on the needle that it's able to push it down and then pull it back through? Maybe that is exactly how it works. I think I just invented the sewing machine. So it's like a barb. Like let's just say there's a needle. If you're as confused as me, follow along. If you're not as confused and you know how these work, then maybe this is exactly wrong. But let's just think of a needle. Now think of an oval hole in the needle. Except it's not right in the center. It's like side of the needle is missing. And there's like an opening where there's an upward loop and there's an opening when there's a downward loop, and the string sits in the middle of that, and it's able to push it down. Yeah, but no, because how's the needle get to the next hole? Because I would say it pushes it down and then pulls it up, but that doesn't explain how the heck the needle, that would just only make sense if it was going up and down in the same hole, which doesn't make sense. So yes, we still haven't discovered how sewing machines work. How does CDs work? I don't know. You can see on a CD, I guess is cool. Like if you have a CD, I've got one right next to me actually with a bunch of home movies on it. You can look at a CD and you can see like a circle that's a little darker from the inside out. That's where all the information is, I think. And that's how much the lighter part is all the open spot on the CD. Like that's one thing to understand. So we're getting somewhere. But how does anything get written onto it? Is it just ones and zeros? Is it so many ones and zeros and that's you can hold that much information? That's just insane. And lastly, is littering bad? Now, bear with me here. I know, like, throwing a 6-pack soda can plastic ring thing outside is bad because of the fact that if a bird goes and tries to eat it, it may wrap it around its neck and die. I'll concede that. I agree with that, of course. There's no question about that's bad. But let's say there are no animals that would get harmed by you throwing this plastic out. Is that bad? It's just sitting there. And again, I agree it's ugly. It's not good to look at. Like I don't want to look at garbage on the road. But is it really affecting the environment? You know what I mean? Other than the animals, of course, is it affecting the environment? You know, I get it takes a lot longer to degrade, right? Like thousands of years other than like a plastic bag or than a paper bag. Like a paper bag, if you get it wet, it just kind of deteriorates and whatever soaks back into the soil, right? But let's say you have like I don't know an old car, and that sinks in. Let's say the Titanic. Like, is that littering? Just the ship itself? Like, is that littering in the ocean? Other than like the gasoline and like the stuff like that, like that's not good in the water. But like just a big hunk of metal, right? Let's just say a big, huge ship with beds and crap like that in it. Like, is that bad for the environment? It's just moved from on top of the water to underneath the water. Like, why is just because no one's using it anymore, now all of a sudden it's bad? Because landfills, I don't think they're all like Toy Story 3 where there's just like a big incinerator. Like, that's just a big pile of litter. That's all the stuff I don't understand. But so that's the end of the list. What was that? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 8 things I don't understand, and I don't think we solved any of them. Hopefully, you're on the same page as me and I don't look like such an idiot. I wonder if you're as perplexed as I am. Which, of course, so that ends that section of the pod. And it brings us to the word of the day, which is tact. T-A-C-T, which, of course, stands for adroitness and sensitivity in dealing with others or difficult issues. Of course, I need to look up the word adroitness, which means cleverness or skill. All right, so you have a cleverness or skill in dealing with others or with difficult issues. So you're like strong and not necessarily witty, like funny, but you have a strong wit and you're able to come to conclusions even on sensitive topics and tough issues. So that's a good word. Tact. I watched a documentary yesterday, recommended by my high school buddy, Robert. I won't give the last name just in case I become famous one day from white coffee and he wouldn't want his name out and about, knowing that maybe I'll become offensive one day and he doesn't want to be my friend, or maybe he'll become offensive one day and I don't want you to know that he was my friend. Regardless, he introduced me to a documentary called Out of the Shadows, and it's about the gay community at Procter and Gamble in the 90s and I think early 2000s, and their struggles with equal opportunity employment and being treated professionally in the workplace, regardless of their sexual orientation. And it's weird to have this. I mean, I was born, 2001. I'm a young boy. But growing up, like I think second grade, I used the word gay, like lame. I still kind of use it now, but only in like in a parody way. Where it's like, oh yeah, that's gay, right? But never in like a derogatory way. That just doesn't Like, that just doesn't make sense to me in the society we live in now. Like, it just is kind of unheard of to talk like in a degrading way because of someone's sexuality. Like, you can have your own opinions on it, but it's just doesn't fit. And it's kind of hard to think that that was even a time in society that there was like gays, like anti-gay protests and stuff like that. Because in this documentary, that's how it starts off, is like these protesters, like these people marching, like gays burn, gays are evil, and it's just like, that's a weird thing to protest, like gayness. And I guess at the time it made sense, right? Not that I'm advocating for it, but I guess at different times, like it was different then. It made sense to do it back then, but now it's just like so unheard of, and it's only been what, 20 years. I mean, I said second grade, it already was kind of not a thing anymore, and that was like 2008. So within 10 years of that time, like, it was just already over with, which is very weird. And of course there's still issues today, not to say that there's not. But definitely, I don't think to that degree where there's whole cities going on a march saying gays are evil. So I guess this documentary was talking about, um, like, Procter and Gamble started out by saying, like, issuing this new company-wide, not law, but what's the word? Let's just say law, because I don't feel like sitting here trying to think of the word. Company standard for like treating people equally based on, or regardless of their sexual orientation. But then when it actually was implemented, it was completely different, and it was keeping people from being able to get insurance for their kids. And then Procter and Gamble came out and he even was making insurance. They were allowing people to get insurance on their pets, but like gay people weren't able to get insurance on their family because it wasn't seen as like a regular family. Very weird. And I guess I guess the whole point of me bringing this up, I'm sorry I kind of rambled where it didn't make any sense. The whole point of me bringing this up is just like, that was like 20 years ago. And it's crazy to think now that that was ever even like an issue. Not to trivialize the movement, but just like, even people have their opinions on gay relationships now, or gay people, but I don't think anyone's like, it's evil anymore, or at least not of any consequence. Like, I'm sure people think that, but what? Like, not to the degree of a company, not even regarding these people as equal. Of course, there's probably someone in their house down in Mississippi or whatever going like, I don't think those gays are right. They're evil. What? Like, that's not right. It's not healthy to think that way, but it's also like, that's not going to change. There's no laws that are going to come from that. But there were laws in the 90s that were like, yeah, they're not the same, which is very weird. Very, very weird. Which, of course, brings me to my next point, the song of the day. Now, George Harrison, of course, was a singer from the Beatles. He played guitar. He was a genius. And he went on to his own solo career, and he wrote the song Cracker Box Palace. I don't know when it's from. I think it's on an album called like 33 and a third, which is like the speed you play a record. I probably can't play even 3 seconds of this song because it's George Harrison, and I'm sure they're a lot more strict with people related to the Beatles and you stealing their music. I'm not stealing the music. I'm telling you to go out on your own and listen to this song, but this is how it starts. I mean, you can tell right away it just sounds fun, like you want to be in a bouncy house. What the heck even is a Cracker Box Palace? I think it's some guy from, what's the word, Monty Python? I think it's some guy, that's his house, he named it the Cracker Box Palace, and him and George Harrison were friends. I was so young when I was born. That's a good song and a good opening line. I was so young when I was born, and even after you say that, you're getting older by the second. I think there was a Mitch Hedberg bit about that, like a photograph. This is a picture of me from a while ago or something like that. I'm completely butchering this bit. I don't know. This is a picture of me, and he goes, "Every picture of you is." I just have to Google it. I'm sorry. This is a low spot in the pod. Mitch Hedberg photograph bit. You got a picture? Oh, all right. Here we go. I'm sorry. Here we go. One time, the guy handed me a picture of him and said, "Here's a picture of me when I was younger." Every picture of you is when you were younger. Oh, here's a picture of me when I'm older. You son of a bitch. How'd you pull that off? Let me see that camera. What's it look like? That's a Mitch Hedberg bit. Then I had to read word for word off of a Facebook post because I'm an idiot and I can't remember a simple joke like that. Let me apologize for the podcast's lateness today. It's coming out at what? It's going to be probably 4:30 when it gets uploaded. I apologize. I know you guys like to be in a routine. Hopefully the Tuesday, Thursday is a strict enough routine and enough to keep you 20 fans calm. I'm proud to see how well the last one did. I'd like to thank, of course, my number one fan. You know who you are. You know who you are, Titty. Seemingly my number one fan. There may be other fans, but none as nice as you that comment on every video. I'm assuming that you shared the podcast. But if you didn't, and other people had shared the podcast, I'd like to thank them too. You don't have to comment for me to know that you're my fan. My fans, of course, if you're someone that did share the podcast and you didn't comment, that's all right. I don't need you to comment. I like when people comment because this podcast is small enough, the fan base is small enough that I'll read every single one. What are there, 6 comments on every couple of videos? I'll read them all and I'll probably respond to them if they're of any substance. So, of course, share the podcast. Comment on the podcast, like the video, let me know. Make sure these are going well. I'm kind of slowly changing from 30-minute ramblings to trying to have like an overall theme to the podcast, while of course still keeping the word of the day and the song of the day. And kind of wrapping up with just like the behind the scenes stuff like right now. It's 21 minutes in, and I'm hoping to God I can figure out something to talk about for the next 7 minutes. But that's how the podcast is. I'm not sure about a video coming out this weekend. Once I get an idea of what to make an actual video about, then I'll make it, and then I'll start making more videos every weekend. But as for right now, I'm not going to purposely put out a video just for the sake of putting one out when I know I don't have anything to do. So again, if you have any ideas for me to do it, I'll do it. Even if it's just one comment saying, I'd like for you to watch Toy Story. It's like, all right, I'll just watch Toy Story because at least one person would watch it. For right now, I have absolutely no ideas. I was going to make an album review episodes, maybe movie reviews, and every Saturday it would always be a video, but there's like different shows in that realm where like one episode a month would be like a movie review, the other one would be an album review, the other one would be just something, me talking. Like, what do you guys think? I don't know what to do, but once we get into the groove where I have a couple banked episodes, then I'll start releasing them every weekend. So don't worry, I'm not forgetting about doing them, but I'm not going to purposely put them out when I know they're not of good quality, because I don't want to start off on the wrong foot and have people think, well, those episodes are just stupid. I saw the first one, they're bad, I'm not going to check them out. So, of course, yeah, it's up to the audience. You guys tell me what to do. I'll do it. If somehow YouTube ends up publishing this one again on their For You page, or no, that's TikTok, whatever the heck they did. Whatever they did with the last episode where I got 1,000 views, that was awesome. Of course, no one commented, no one liked it, so I don't think that the audience retention was very high. I know everyone left in the first 2 minutes, but hopefully we have a couple of you that listen to the entire episode. This one might be a little shorter. I don't know, unless I think of something real quick about a nice story. But hopefully you're entertained in the first 10 minutes about all the crap I don't understand, and now you're just sitting around listening to me talk about the actual podcast. Very fourth wall-y, very meta. You know what I mean? So yeah, let me know what you want the podcast episode, even podcast topics. Send me something. Send me documentaries. Send me videos if you're like, hey, react to this. Send me videos, talk about it on the podcast. Like, I will. Request songs for Song of the Day. Request words for Word of the Day. I'll write them down. We make 2 episodes a week. So, if there's anything you want me to do, let me know. I've said that 300 times, but it's true. Just write it in the comments. So, I guess I could talk real quick about just my life. Right now, I'm in electrical engineering in school. I've talked about this 15 times, but just to get into more detail, if anyone's interested. Electrical engineering in school, but I'm changing to English. I talked to my professor, or my advisors, about changing to English. They originally said I might be a year behind because I already went 2 years of just math, and now I'm going to change to English. It's going to be hard to get it right on track with everyone else, especially with teaching. They only have the fall classes in the fall and the spring classes in the spring, obviously. But it's not as easy as just going, I need to make up 4 semesters worth of class. I'll just cram them all in one. Well, sometimes they're only offered at specific times a year. And that's just how Pennsylvania as a state organizes the teaching classes, because they're very structured and they're very regulated. It's not a Penn State thing, it's Pennsylvania. But I should be able to get right in track without being a year behind or anything, even though the first 2 years of school were all electrical engineering, or all engineering. Um, it will require me to take 6 classes next spring and 3 classes over the summer semester, or over the summer. But you know what? I can handle that. If it's 6 classes where it's not math, I think I'll be all right. 6 classes of English, it's going to be hard, don't get me wrong, but at least it'll be like, hey, read this and interpret it. Write something that you want to write about. Not like, I would say, for the sake of the argument, like, here's an analogy. For English, it would say, hey, read all of Shakespeare and tell me how you feel. But for math, it would say, hey, read all of Shakespeare and then be able to recite any passage out of it on a test without being able to look back. Like, you have to know all these formulas for math, whereas English, it's just like, man, just tell me how you feel, dude. And that's what I like about it. That it's kind of more like, take it easy. And then, like I said, once I get my teaching certificate, then I can get, whatever the word is, confirmed or whatever. That's a Catholic thing. But then I can get my certificate in English, and then after that, I can get any certificate I want as long as I pass the test. So hopefully I can get my social studies and then maybe math. Even though I hate math, but I am at least understand it. I'm just bored of it. So yeah. We're coming up on the 26-minute mark here. I think that's long enough for the podcast. I'm sorry again, it was a little late today, but I've got a bunch of crap to do for school, and I had to cram this in. I had to do my dishes today. I have a whole list of things to do. It says rewatch econ lecture, redo your engineering test, do your math homework. I have a math test tomorrow. I need to make a review sheet for that. Sorry, my phone went off. So anyway, I've got a bunch of crap to do for school. I had to clean my room, go to grocery shopping, blah, 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 blah. But I wanted to make sure that this episode came out on time. And I want you to know that I'll see you all again on Tuesday. Thank you for listening to the whole entire episode of White Coffee. Make sure to share this podcast. Follow it on Twitter, White Coffee Pod.